Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I'm going to be talking to Salim Dharssi. He's the founder and CEO of a software company called Managemate. Welcome to the show, Salim.
Hi, Lance. Thanks for having me.
So, Salim, tell me a little bit about Managemate. What does the software do?
Yeah, Managemate is software for condominium boards. It's software as a service platform that helps condominium boards manage their buildings. And we do that by giving them access to information that they otherwise have a hard time finding. So it saves them time and improves their productivity. And the end goal is to get more work done with better results and to save them condo fees at the end of the day.
Which is a huge thing. I don't know what the market size is across the country in North America in terms of condos, but there is a massive number of condo boards out there, I would suspect. So a huge audience potentially for your product.
Yeah, that's right. And systems of condominium governance are also similar throughout Canada, but also in the US and abroad in the UK and other countries. What you have are volunteer board members who are tasked with maintaining and improving their buildings. They hire property managers. So there's a big business around property management services, and they hire vendors to help them with their buildings. And they have to manage multi-million-dollar budgets, all of these condos. And it's challenging, and they're volunteers and they're not trained for this. And so it is a big market. It's niche yet big. And we're setting out to give these volunteers tools that they otherwise don't have to make their lives easier.
So tell me a little bit of a high level, and we don't have to get into the weeds of it, but how is this product different than a lot of the other project management software tools that maybe boards might be using right now? Or I know that there are tools out there that are specifically for, the project managers managing everything as well. So how do you guys differentiate yourself in that marketplace when there are adjacent tools that are kind of being used right now?
Yeah, and a lot of the current tools are good for general project management, but they're not geared towards the workflows that a board would be accustomed to that involve managing their building. So we think about a project plan. A project plan has typical the ability to manage milestones and set start dates and end dates and assign tasks. But what it doesn't do is integrate with, say, a vendor management system or with an equipment list or with other things that boards tackle that have to do specifically with building management. And so that's what we're trying to focus on. We're trying to focus on providing a platform that's very geared towards the workflows of the condo boards so that it's seamless for them to use, because it has to be easy to use. They're volunteers. They don't want to spend a lot of time managing their buildings, yet they want to do a good job.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding you correctly, then your software basically brings everything that they need into one place, where other ones, you can use it, but then you have some side software that you maybe use, whether it's spreadsheets or something like that as well. So this just really centralizes it all.
Yeah.
And then the workflow part of it, which I really love hearing you state, is just that this whole obstacle of the volunteer aspect of it and the untrained person trying to manage these multi-million-dollar projects, that is such a reality, right? And so there's so many mistakes that happen, and because of that, because they're volunteers that are not trained in it. So this takes a lot of that guesswork out of it, lays out the right path forward for all condo board situations.
Yeah,
right?
That's correct. And we find a lot of condo boards right now use manual tools. So they actually don't use the project management solutions. What they use are emails, spreadsheets, maybe Google Sheets, Dropbox, and Google Drive to manage documents. But what happens is a lot of the information that they need or that they refer to is just not captured in files or doesn't make its way into a spreadsheet. And so they can't find the information they need to make decisions, and boards turn over, managers turn over. So information is effectively lost. And that makes it really hard to make good decisions. And everyone tries really hard to make the best decision with the information they have. But sometimes you might replace a piece of equipment that actually was covered under a warranty, or you might hire the same subpar vendor that you hired 7 years ago and had a bad experience with, but just didn't know because all of the personnel and board members have changed. And so things are done not purposefully bad, but things happen and things can be more efficient in the way these buildings are managed.
So you must be coming at this then from a property management background or something like that. How did you discover this need?
Yeah,
guess.
well, I live in a condo with my wife and my kids. We've lived in condos for a long time. So I joined my condo board. I was told it would take about 3 hours a month. I was a practicing lawyer, and so they were very interested in having me aboard because having kind of some legal skills helps in being able to review documents and things that boards do. So I joined my board, and sure enough, it was not 3 hours a month. It was about 15 to 20 hours a month of time in between board meetings, either meeting vendors, working with our property manager, working with other boards, reviewing documents, trying to just figure out what to do and who to believe when we're getting different opinions from vendors or engineers on the work that needs to be done. And so it was that moment, I think, in that my time on the condo board, that I thought there must be a better way. Um, and so that's how I got the idea. It took me a few years to leave my legal practice and then to start the business. But it was that moment of inspiration and just looking into the industry at that point that got me interested in it.
Oh, excellent. So now one of the things that I love probing into is the backgrounds of people when they, jump into entrepreneurship. So you were saying that you were a practicing lawyer. Now, that's a huge opportunity cost to be stepping away from a law practice to become an entrepreneur and start this software SaaS company. And so walk me through that decision a bit as to, is this something that you were always entrepreneurial, or your family was very entrepreneurial? What got that entrepreneurial bug, I guess, fired up that you were willing to step away from a practice like that?
So I think I've always been entrepreneurial at heart, and that started when I was in my first undergrad. So before I was a lawyer, I was a computer engineer, and at that time, I actually found it tough to find jobs in software development when I was in my undergrad. And so I started my own software development company at that time, and we tried to build applications for large enterprises at the department level, but they were database oriented applications. This goes back to the early 2000s. And I tried to productize that business. I was not successful at productizing it, and it turned into general software development consulting. I did that for 6 years, part-time while I was in school and for a year afterwards. And then since I wasn't able to productize it, I thought, well, what else can I do? And I had always been interested in law. So I decided after engineering school to go to law school. And that's when I think I found my calling in of sorts, because I was a very detail oriented person and a process oriented person. So that went well. But I look back and I found myself as a lawyer for 10 years, and I kept getting this urge to do something again more entrepreneurial. But it was a very lucrative career. It was enjoyable. And I think that I probably stayed in it maybe a little bit too long, frankly. But my kind of entrepreneurial roots kept calling me back.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, because it's different. I don't talk to very many people who come from, that level of a professional position or career. And so I was actually talking to somebody last week for the first time who was a doctor who stepped out of like practicing. Like I think he just finished up his med school, so he was just beginning his practice, and he, again, same thing, got bit by the bug, and now is doing some other really interesting things. And so it's interesting because a lot of people, when they're starting, they are working in that field, and then they decide that they want to take that expertise that they have and build a business around that. But you saw the opportunity, the need, even though you weren't in that field, except for the software development side of things. So you're probably not the person developing the software in this case, though, I'd imagine, after 10 years away from the development side of things, or am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, it was tough, but I did build our product. And
Oh, you did?
yeah, I did. And I used a no code platform called bubble.io, and that's what our application is based on right now. And this was after speaking with friends who, from my engineering days, were now VPs of engineering. Some were at startups, some were at larger companies, and half of them. And this is when I started Management, because I thought I'd hire someone to build this for me, because my coding skills are too outdated. And I thought that they would actually say, yep, you can hire so-and-so, or let me introduce you to a potential co-founder. And I have been looking for a technical co-founder, but I couldn't find one. And half of them actually suggested look at no code. because it's actually come a long way in recent years. This is in 2020. And you can build your entire platform using no code tools. So it's visual programming in effect. And I was always really good at visual programming. I liked working with UIs. I liked working with databases, but I didn't really enjoy the coding. And so this was a way for me to build our product and stand it up. And it's a production ready application. So that's been an interesting journey. And I think a great skill to have. And yeah, I'd encourage others to really check out no code platforms if you don't have a technical co-founder.
Oh, very interesting. So now you started the business, I think you had told me previously, in September of 2020. So this would have been in the middle of the pandemic, doing it part-time off the side of your legal desk, I guess, and then migrated to full-time here early this spring, so March of 2022. And so walk me through the challenges of building a business from the side of your desk while you're focused on other things. And if you would do anything different in that regard, if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, I guess.
Yeah, it was much more difficult than I'd anticipated. When I left my full-time practice in the summer of 2020, I ended up working for a couple small law firms, and I would have some work for clients, and I could say no to work if I wanted to. But once you took on an engagement as a lawyer, you are responsible to, diligently complete that work. And what I found was I was constantly being pulled away from the project plan I'd set out and the objectives I'd set out because I wouldn't have enough time to work on Managemate. And so it was challenging because I would try and switch between one thing in the morning and another thing in the afternoon. And that takes a lot of kind of effort to do. And basically things went really slowly with Managemate, much more slowly than I would have liked. It took me, close to, from requirements drafting and customer discovery to launching the product, it took 13, 14 months. And frankly, it probably could have taken maybe 3 to 6 months, maybe, if I had been working on it full time. But it was, I guess law had made me very conservative and very risk averse. And so leaving law altogether was leaving my full-time practice was very difficult. And then leaving my part-time practice was very difficult. But I'm glad now that I'm focused on Managemate and things are starting to move more quickly.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to dig into that, what you just said there about being a lawyer made you really risk adverse. And so, yeah, I know my fair share of lawyers, and yeah, it's really difficult for them to think in an entrepreneurial way. How do you break away from that conservative mindset then as an entrepreneur? And do you feel that it's holding you back right now, or has it served you really well in the early days of setting up the company?
So law school trains you to not leave any stone unturned. You have to analyze a problem, look at the legal framework that is required to kind of assess that problem and figure out a solution. And it just, you have to identify all risks in law school because that's how you're graded. Then when I left law school and I went to my legal practice, I became a litigator. I was a patent litigator. So I would help companies enforce patents or defend against patent litigation lawsuits. And as a litigator, you're also assessing risk. And so you're advising your clients on what their risks are. And then I realized I didn't like that. I was I wanted to be constructive and not destructive. And so I tried to look for a different area of law to practice in. And I became a technology lawyer. And in that capacity, I started advising startups and SaaS companies in particular. I worked for a cloud services distribution company. And the more and more I worked for startups, the more and more I started getting exposed to working with the founders and other executives at these startups who needed help, but in a constructive way. So we're trying to sell our software to a bank, or we're trying to figure out what our terms and conditions should be for our new online application. And that intrigued me because they operated very differently than a lot of my colleagues had operated, and a lot of the people you're exposed to when you're practicing law. And I think that opened up my eyes again to what it is like to do something different than the practice of law. And that's what interested me and kind of encouraged me to get back into entrepreneurship, because I just, I seem to want to do that more than practice law.
Yeah. So is there anything that you're doing with that mindset training, I guess, or retraining so that you are a little less risk adverse. Is that something that you're putting into practice certain things, or is it just each day you try to put your mind at ease and go, okay, well, this isn't going to necessarily be the worst risk to take?
Yeah, well, I think what I'm doing is using the OKR method, so objectives and key results, to set objectives, because that forces you then to pin down what you need to do to hit those objectives and how you measure yourself on those. And when you realize I need to get something done by next week and then something else done by the week after that to hit this quarterly OKR, you have no choice but to just keep moving, and you have to make decisions based on not a lot of information and just take some risk. And so using that kind of structure or that goal setting technique for me has allowed me to break out of the traditional way that I would operate in a more conservative and risk-based approach. So that's helped, but it has been difficult. I think I still do sometimes ponder on decisions a little bit too long or need a little bit too much information before I can move forward, because I guess I've been used to doing that in my career.
Yeah. And I would imagine that's also maybe amplified because you're a sole founder, and when you have a co-founder who is a little bit more risk taking, there's a little bit more of a balance there just naturally that comes from that. And so, yeah, I could see how you could get into your own head in terms of getting stuck in the analysis phase maybe a little too long.
I was told that when I started the business by everyone, it really helps to have a co-founder. It really helps to have a co-founder. And I understood it, but I couldn't action it. I looked, and someone I was actually supposed to start the business with, he got promoted to VP of engineering of his company. And so he said, well, now I can't leave because it's too lucrative of an opportunity. And so that's when I ended up starting Managemate as a solo founder, but it's tough as a solo founder.
Yeah, well, you're wearing a lot of hats, right? I don't know what you have in terms of staff complement at this point, but I mean, that's one of the things in the early days is you're always kind of wearing the CTO hat, the CFO hat, the CEO hat, and the CMO hat, like you got them all on. So has that been a challenge for you as well, where you've had to learn a lot of different aspects as you're going along because you don't have that expertise at the founder table?
It has been a challenge. And what I've done though is just learn up and spend, do a crash course in sales when I realized, okay, I need to start selling, or do a crash course in product management, or, when I need to build the product and I have a small team helping me with that, how to use Jira, how to do agile management. And so I would just really blitz, I guess, learning as much as I can on the topic. And then, I'm not going to do it as well as someone who's done it for years, but I have no other choice but to figure it out and try and do what I can in that area. And so, right now I'm doing that in marketing. I'm trying to figure out how to get more leads. And so my OKRs are all around getting more leads in the next few months. And so, I'm reading marketing books and speaking with marketing professionals, but it's a challenge. But it's kind of what I enjoy. It's sort of, that's the point of being an entrepreneur, or you go in with your eyes open and that's what it's going to be like. And, that's the fun part, I think.
Yeah. I agree with you. That's very much fits my mindset too. So before we ever launch any kind of new service, I need to understand it. So that I can, I come more from a sales background as well. And so I can't sell it unless I understand it and believe in it, for one. But also I want to make sure that we've perfected it essentially before it becomes something that we are asking people to trust us on
Right.
in execution, right? And so I've taken that approach through most of the growth stages of our company, Ample Media, but it can be challenging to do that. And same thing, I'm a solo founder as well, and so it is difficult when you don't have those other people to be able to tap into their knowledge and expertise on. So talking about challenges though, so what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge that you're going to face now to get to the next stage in your growth that you're wanting to achieve for a Managemate?
Yeah. And right now our goal is to get traction. So we have a paying customer. We have some customers in the pipeline who will hopefully start their free trial, but we need more information. Our product is good, but it's also a bit light, and we have a roadmap of features we want to potentially add, but we need feedback from customers to figure out where we should put our resources to get those features built. And so we're at that finding traction stage, and we basically just need to introduce our product to a lot more condos. We're unknown right now on the market because we haven't done any marketing. And so our challenge is to basically talk to more potential customers, introduce Managemate to them, and learn from them and improve our product based on that, to try and find, product market fit, to try and demonstrate some traction to potential investors, to try and just get that validation that we need to, know that this is worth continuing in its current form. Or do we pivot? Do we do something a little bit different? So that's our objective. And it's hard to sell directly to condo boards. A lot of the software vendors out there sell to property management companies, which is why those software tools are geared towards them and not the boards themselves. And that's why boards don't use them. And so, boards are volunteers. They don't advertise the fact that they're on their condo boards. They have full-time jobs, or they're retired. They do different things in their, full-time kind of life. And so we found it a bit hard to find them and to reach them. But, we're trying to now come up with a strategy, a bit of outbound sales, some marketing, lead generation, to bridge that gap. And we'll see how that goes over the next 4 months. I think our innovation, frankly, the product has to be good. It has to solve a problem. But what I'm realizing is our innovation might be in how we, what our go-to market strategy is, and how we actually get to market, find our customers in an efficient way. That's not a 6-month sales cycle for a product that's not, doesn't have the price tag that can support a 6-month sales cycle with a lot of hand holding. And so we'll see how we get there. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that, as you were expressing that challenge around, we don't really know until we get all the users in, or a bunch more users in. We don't have the data to really inform the development side of it, to put in the features that are going to be the most needed. This, I would imagine, is a challenge for every software company, in the sense that as you start to get some of that feedback, how do you prioritize that, and what features do you start to build out? Because you could also really extinguish all of your resources if you were focused on trying to be all things to everybody, with that initial feedback that you're going to be getting from the users as they start really using the product. And so have you thought through that process, as how you're going to prioritize some of those feature sets, how you decide what you focus on the development of the software?
Yeah, we're learning as we go. I think the goal would be to build our product in a way that is consistent with our mission and our vision. And if we do that, and our mission is to help condominium boards more efficiently manage their buildings, and our vision is to do that in a way that makes it more sustainable for condominium owners to live the condominium life without fees getting too high. If our product features meet that vision and satisfy that mission, then we are okay getting feedback from our customers and prioritizing those things that they're asking us for, because that's what they want, and that's what will help them. And we're tracking data, though. We're checking, when we make a change, does usage go up? How are they using the product differently? What are they telling us during our business reviews? And so we're trying to do it in a way that is not necessarily building one product for one customer, but in a way that can be applied to the market more broadly.
Yeah, good. Okay, so any thoughts then in terms of marketing questions or anything like that you might have for me that I might be able to guide you on? As you did notice or mention that your marketing is going to be the biggest challenge that is facing you here in the next little bit.
Wow, lots of questions. I think one thing we're facing now is that we don't want 1,000 customers. We don't even want 100 customers. We just say want 20, because we want to get feedback before we invest too much more into marketing and sales. And so one question would be is, we need to generate leads, so we need to spend on marketing to get those 20 customers. But does it make sense to run campaigns and to do a certain amount of work just to get the next 20 customers, and then maybe pause a campaign or pause some of that work? Maybe is there some upkeep that has to be done, of course, to then be able to restart that more easily? Is that commonly done, or do you only spend in marketing when you're at the growth stage? So you have the product that you know is going to satisfy a market need, and now you just want to grow and get a lot of customers. That's a question I'm not too sure about.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is common to run campaigns for very specific stages for startups and then put the brakes on it, pause it for a while, get that user data that's going to inform the development. And then you tweak everything. You get another release out, another version basically out, and then you go harder than again on that marketing. So anytime that you are in that product development stage, so you have your minimum viable product right now, you need the user case studies. In your particular situation, like you said, it's really difficult to identify who that audience is that's out there. Like, you know who you want, but you just can't narrow it in the digital landscape and the digital marketing tools to identify people who are condo board members. Like you said, they're likely don't have that on their LinkedIn profile. They likely aren't talking about that in their Facebook chatter and stuff that they're making posts on. And so there's not a lot of those digital tools out there that we would use for other types of products to really, narrow in on those particular users. So that's a big challenge for you. And I think that that is going to be your biggest one going to market at every stage. Now, in this early stage, when you say, all I need is 20 people, I think what you mentioned earlier, where your strategy, your thinking is going to be more of an outbound sales, that's bang on. That's exactly what I would do. And so would be a lot of marketing companies that'd be like, wait, you're Lance, you're trying to sell marketing services. And so that's the last thing you want to do is tell them just to pick up the phone and call people. But the reality of it is that's going to be your best return on any effort as well as dollars that you spend in the area of acquiring those first 20 people. So I would be very focused on reaching out to them. Now, there's going to be some things that you might want to do, because when you secure 20 people, you're going to have to reach out to more than 20 in
Correct.
order to get that, right? And so you might be into the 200 kind of range where we're talking a 10% uptick or take on that offer essentially. And that's probably not going to be too far off of what it will likely be when you start to think through that more direct outreach process. And so if you are reaching out to 20 or 200 people, you're going to have 180 people that you've made some sort of connection with, who maybe have turned you down for whatever reason at that particular point in time. But those are 180 people that could potentially be interested at that next stage. And so you want to continue to cultivate that. And so I would put them into a longer term drip, we'd call it, or email sequence where you're keeping them informed as to the development of the software. You're keeping them informed on the progress of your company, so that when you do have version 2 out, you take another intake, and those might be a really primed group of people to do that next intake. So again, you can get more users, get more data, or maybe after the first 20, you have enough data then to really just take it to really what's going to be the kind of the more polished version that is ready for mass market release. Well, those 180 that you've been building a relationship with in some form or another, they might be some of the earliest adopters then of the software. So don't ignore them, but I wouldn't spend a tremendous amount of effort on them, especially when you're wearing the multiple hats, because I think what you're going to need to do is just really be handholding those first 20, getting as much data, as much anecdotal information, as much analytics from the way that they're using the actual software. You want to be working through all that and really focusing on that development. So
right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So nurture them, but don't dedicate a ton of time.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so in the sake of time, we'll stop there. I think in terms of the questions, I know you probably have many more from that, but hopefully that helped you and will help some other people. And I really appreciate the journey that you've shared with us, and just the thinking through what you're doing, and the risk taking challenge that you maybe have as somebody who's been trained to be risk adverse. And that I think there's a lot of interesting nuggets of information here, Salim, that you've provided us as well as all of our listeners. So thank you very much for spending the time today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me on. It's been a nice conversation.
Yeah. So for those of you who are interested in reaching out and learning more about Managemate, you head over to managemate.ca, I think it is. Is that correct?
That's right. Management.ca. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. And everybody, if you enjoyed this episode and you're interested in listening to some of our past episodes, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca, and there you will find our archive. And also we are available on your favorite podcast software or platform now as well. So if you're interested in just listening to the audio episodes, you can head over to whichever podcasting service you prefer and download and listen to us there as well. So until next time, everybody have a profitable and prosperous day.